Welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. I'm Jessica Stutzman. Food waste makes up the largest component of the municipal waste stream and takes up the most space in local landfills. But Millcreek Township, in partnership with large-scale food composter Conservation Compost, is working towards creating a sustainable future for our community. With us today is one of the owner and operators of Conservation Compost, David Wachowski. Dave, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, so we've been in talks for a little while now, all summer long, researching and diving into what this program would look like. And here we are, we finally were able to recently enter into a license agreement together to start this new food waste pilot program at the Millcreek Compost Center. So I know we're really excited about that. But before we jump into the actual program, what I want viewers to know and realize and then get excited about doing this, I want to know why food waste, composting, is so important.
Well, as you said, food waste makes up the largest component of our municipal waste stream. So as such, it is a heavy and high volume material that gets into the landfill. And unfortunately, when that food gets into the landfill, it breaks down without oxygen. And in that process, it creates methane, which we know is one of the most powerful greenhouse gases, much more powerful than carbon dioxide. So removing that organic waste is one of the best things that we can do to remove some of those, to stop climate change and to lower greenhouse gases.
Yes. And so we know that the average family of four, we generate a lot of food waste in America. And, we have some statistics on how much does each person waste maybe per year or per month? Do you have those numbers?
Yeah, so the average number is about 219 to 220 pounds per person per year. Now, I have little kids at home. I've got 2 at home. So my family of 4, we're probably way over that. So it's a lot of material that ends up into the garbage can.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. And I do food compost at home with my family. But, we've got some cool things here that makes this program different than your regular backyard composting program. So I do want to touch on that in a little bit. But when will this particular program begin, and how would it work for a participant?
So it's going to be starting in March. I believe March 14th is the opening date. In order to sign up, you can go to our website, which is conservationcompost.com. There's a link there for the residential program. And when you sign up, it is $10 a month, and there's a one-time fee of $5 for a bucket, which you get to keep. We provide you with compostable liners to get you started, and then you would pick up your bucket and your liners at the Millcreek compost site. After that, start saving your food scraps, which we have a couple strategies to share with you on the best way to do that. And then whenever you are ready, hopefully once or twice per week, you can come drop them off in one of our green 64-gallon bins at the Millcreek site, and we will be servicing those weekly and bringing them to our facility to compost.
Yes. Okay, so we just talked about I backyard compost, and I actually hold classes, and I will continue to do so, but what is different about composting at home versus through this program, again, because it's on a larger scale and done by, again, a large-scale composter such as your business?
Yeah, so the biggest difference is that we get everything up to a very high and steady temperature. And because we do that, we're able to compost several things that you can't compost in your backyard. And the biggest thing that we can get asked about is, can we compost meat? And the answer is yes, we can. We can compost a lot of the stuff, again, that you wouldn't put in your backyard, like spoiled leftovers, for example. You wouldn't want to put that in your backyard because it would smell, or the neighbor's dog might get into it, something like that. With our system, everything is contained. We contain all those materials. We heat it up to the proper temperatures using oxygen, and so we're able to break all of those things down in our system. So not just your coffee and your filters and your veggies and fruits, but it's also things like meat, things like bones, and also the PLA compostable to-go containers. A lot of our restaurants are moving in that direction, which is fantastic. But one problem with those PLA containers is they won't compost in the backyard because they don't reach a high enough temperature. but in our system they do.
And that's true, because I have attempted to compost them in my backyard and it just doesn't work. I do, during my testing, experimenting, I will call it, I do have to pull those out and I end up having to throw them away. And you mentioned meat. Does that include fish too?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Co-owner Ryan Nadgett, we are avid fishermen. We do save all of our carcasses from any walleyes and things like that. They go through the system great.
Yes. And so you were talking about your style of composting. What I want residents or viewers to know is that through the Millcreek Compost Center, we do windrow style composting, and that is only to compost leaf waste, which is a brown and not a green. And then in your backyard bin, you're usually going to have maybe an enclosed vessel that rotates, or maybe even an open style, maybe like a wood pallet composter that may be open. And then you're composting browns and greens. But again, not the meats or anything like that. Tell us your style of composting. How does that work?
So in our system, we actually have static piles, but we pump oxygen into the system from the bottom. So doing that, we break things down aerobically. And again, we talked about how the landfill things break down anaerobically without oxygen. Our system, we actively add oxygen into the pile. And basically what we do is we accelerate an environment for those microbes. We give them the perfect conditions to break that food waste down, to eliminate any pathogens. And then we also keep it capped and covered with the biofilter, which eliminates any type of odor problems. So our system is called aerated static piles, and again, we use oxygen as the key ingredient. And of course, you have to have the right moisture, the right mixture of browns and greens, as you were describing. And those are all the conditions that we have to monitor every day. And we use temperature probes to make sure everything is hitting the right temperature and adjust if we need to.
Right. It is a very scientific process, and in your backyard, you don't have to be so scientific or exact. And if you think about it, the reason it's lacking that oxygen is because you throw your food scraps or your meat waste into a garbage bag, into a plastic garbage bag, seal it, send it to the landfill, and then again, it's sealed on top of other garbage with other plastic bags, and then covered daily. And that's something, you're just recreating what happens organically in nature.
Correct. Yep. We're giving the microbes, who are the real magicians in this whole process, the best growing conditions that we can. Composting is a fascinating process, fascinating natural process. When we put all of our food waste through our system, and at the end of it we hold this really beautiful black gold of compost, it's an amazing thing to see from start to finish.
Yes, and you mentioned microbes. I do get that question a lot. Are there, bugs, or maybe bad bugs or gross bugs that end up in my compost? But what are microbes?
Microbes would be your beneficial bacteria. And also beneficial fungi. There are all of these little creatures at work in a compost pile, and they're all good for the most part, as long as we're giving them the correct amount of oxygen, the correct amount of moisture, and the right ratio of, again, the browns and the greens, then they're happy. And that's our job. We joke that we're sort of microbe farmers. We keep them very happy, and they do the work.
And then what's the temperature that the compost heats up to?
So our compost typically will get into the 150 to 160 degree range for a few days, and then it should settle back down in the 130 to 140 range. Now we have to meet over 131 degrees for 3 consecutive days, and basically what that does is it ensures that any pathogens, any type of bad things are all eliminated due to that heat. So we monitor temperatures every single day, we log them, make sure we hit all of those correct temperatures. And then once things get broken down, they sort of settle into this active composting, 90, 100, 110 degrees. The little 30 days or so after that, it goes into a curing pile where it should settle even more until it's ambient temperature and everything's broken down completely. And at each phase of that temperature, you have different microbes, beneficial bacteria that work at different temperatures and do their part of the process.
And does the composting process stop in the wintertime? It's so cold. I'm sure your piles are, your open piles are covered with snow at this point. What happens in the winter?
So in the wintertime, our piles don't stay covered in snow very often, because every time that we push that oxygen in, you can actually see the steam rise out of the pile. So we've had 0 degree days where you put the probe in and it still says 160 degrees. And again, it's keeping the microbes happy.
And I think that's what's fascinating. It does not stop in the winter time. We know that. So I think the hardest thing, and we were talking before the show, for me, the hardest thing about composting in your backyard is my bin is covered with snow or my lid is frozen shut. And that's why I love this program so much. I know my family and I are going to sign up, but I love this program so much. One, because I can't compost meat or fish at home. And then two, in the wintertime, it is really tough for me to get to my bin. So that's what I love so much about this program. So let's talk about signing up. What is the cost and who can do this?
Sure, so it is $10 per month. There is a one-time fee for your bucket. It's $5. You get to keep that bucket. You sign up online on our website. It's conservationcompost.com. There's a link for residential composting. In the notes section, just add that you want your drop-off to be at Millfair. So very easy to do, and then once you sign up, we'll drop your bucket off at Millfair labeled with your name. You can pick it up. Comes with some compostable liners to get you started, which are that PLA material that we talked about earlier that's compostable in our type of facility, and it keeps your bucket clean so that it's easier once you empty it, so you don't have to wash it as much.
So you do want the liner. You just want us to pick up the liner and then deposit what you have from your composting 5-gallon bin into the toters at Millfair.
Yep, so the very best way to do it, we will give you a lid. So put that lid on there, make sure there's no accidents in the car on the way over, keep it under 100 miles an hour. When you get to the site, you don't have to tie that bag off. That's one of the biggest things that we try to teach our new residential composters. You don't have to tie the bag. It's actually better for us if you just dump the whole bucket with your compostable liner directly into our 64-gallon bin. And the reason we don't like it tied up is because we mix everything very thoroughly when it gets back to our site. So it's a lot harder to mix if the bags are tied. So just dump it right in, and then again, we'll be there twice a week to service that.
Wonderful. And so, again, we really wanted to open this up to Millcreek Township residents. We wanted to move into being, a sustainable community. And the one thing, again, we were talking about this is not a mandated program by any means. This is certainly voluntary. So, this, you could be into gardening, you could be into food diversion or waste diversion. And I think this fits, again, so many lifestyles. This is just so simple. You could live in an apartment, not have room for your backyard composter, but you can participate in this program.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say one other, incentive. You have talked about your pay-as-you-go trash program where you can buy a certain number of bags. If you remove 30 or 40% of your waste stream with food waste by composting, there's also potential for an economic savings.
Yes.
So as you said, if you're into gardening and into making high-quality finished compost, that might be a reason to participate. If you want to divert food waste to do your part environmentally, that may be a reason to participate, or if you want to potentially save money on refuse, that's another reason to participate.
Yes, and I will tell you, with our pay-as-you-throw program, in Millcreek Township, it is mandated that you're signed up for some sort of service and handling your food waste at your home. So you can be on the unlimited quarterly program, and or you can be on the pay-as-you-throw program, which means you prepay for garbage bags. And the less frequently you set out those garbage bags, which now that you've pulled food waste out of your garbage, that really should just leave things that are broken and maybe things that you can't recycle. So it's a 33-gallon bag, and you set it out as frequently or infrequently as you need to. And I have people on the program who save money by setting it out every other week or even once a month. And then you do still get to participate in weekly recycling. And then you could, again, use this program as how you divert your food waste. So yes, it is a monetary incentive to start diverting your food waste, and then think about the pay-as-you-throw program. So that would definitely help.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I might have started to mention it, but yes, we wanted to offer this to Millcreek Township, but the Millfair Compost Center is a partnership with Fairview Township. So we want to open this up to Fairview Township residents. And then we thought, well, why should we keep this to ourselves? I mean, we're close enough to Summit or McCain, or these other areas. And so we thought, why can't anybody come? And so we really wanted to open this program to anybody really in Erie County who's interested in diverting their food waste.
Absolutely.
Yes, great. Okay, and what is the ultimate goal or outcome of this pilot program? I know we want to test it for a year, and we're going to work out any kinks and bugs and modify and change the program as need be so we can continue to offer this into the future. But what's your ultimate goal here?
Well, I think that if you go back to the beginning, we were talking about a family of 4, 800 pounds of food waste per year. It doesn't take very many families to add up to a tremendous amount of food waste that we can take out of our local landfill. And part of the reason that we started this business was to provide a local solution for a local problem. So at the end of this, I'm hoping that we can look back and say, hey, we've diverted, several 100,000 pounds of food waste. And this is how many, tons of carbon dioxide we've reduced into the atmosphere. This is how much finished compost we've created to help nourish our local gardens and farms. And this is how, we did this together.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. So for me, it all stays local, which I think is really important. And it really closes the loop on, we always see the recycling symbol, but this really closes the loop on the handling of your organic food waste. And so you purchase the food at the grocery store, you consume the food, you have either what you can't finish or what's left over, it gets composted. There's no waste in the process of that. And then the compost then goes back into the earth and the soil, into making new gardens.
And growing new food.
And we start right over again.
Right.
I love that. I think that's wonderful. So, okay, just to get to know Conservation Compost a little bit more, you just mentioned your partner, owner and co-operator. What background, and mention his name one more time for me.
Ryan Nadgett.
Ryan, and what background do you both have in the environmental field or the composting field? And again, why did you get started? Why did you feel like this was, a niche you wanted to fill?
So Ryan and I both graduated from Allegheny College's environmental science program. So that's where we met. So we have a background, an interest in environmental work. So after college, both of us went our separate professional directions. And it was a few years back that Ryan and I were talking about, hey, I've got this kind of crazy idea. It seems like, we're big gardeners. We can't find great compost. And we see just this problem of food waste everywhere we look. And we looked elsewhere in the country and saw that there was a solution to this problem. It just hadn't made its way here yet. And so we decided that we wanted to provide that solution and started down this path. It's an easy thing to be passionate about, and it's exciting to see what a difference we can make locally in our community. And again, it's about keeping this a local solution for this local problem. And the side benefit is that our big gardens also get great compost, so can't beat that.
Exactly. And I think that I know a lot of people who contact me through the recycling department, we all feel so guilty throwing things away. We want to donate them to somebody. We want to be wishful recyclers. And again, this is something that's been happening in nature naturally, and we've harnessed the scientific process behind composting, and I think people are going to be really excited that this has now made its way to Erie and we can offer this program. So thank you for having the same passion that I do.
Sure.
How long have you been composting now on a large scale?
So we started this process, I want to say it was 2017. You do have to go through an extensive permitting process through the DEP, and we received our permit in January of 2020. So we had received our permit, and we were set to open on April 1st of 2020. As everybody knows, March was an interesting month in 2020, and so we got a slower start than we would have hoped due to the pandemic, but we have been in the works now for 3, 4, 5 years now.
Yeah, so you have a lot of experience under your belt dealing with I'm sure really interesting things that come your way. And I, of course, follow you on Facebook and your social media pages. And one thing I stumbled across that I would like to work with you guys in the future is composting the pumpkins at Halloween time. That's just something we're not able to do through the Millcreek Compost Center. And so not only can we now compost our food waste, but now again, pumpkin season at Halloween, we can start to compost our pumpkins too. So I know we're going to work together on that. Okay, so let's tell our viewers again, where can everyone find you? Because I just mentioned social media.
Yep.
How can everyone get in touch with you?
So we do have Conservation Compost is on Facebook, and then you can also get on our website. Again, it's conservationcompost.com. That is where you would sign up if you were interested. We are located in Sagertown. We're just off of the I-79 exit on Route 198. So if you head south and then head west off the interstate, just about 200 yards, that's right where we're at. And if you do sign up for the residential program, we do have a discount on all of the products that we sell, which includes finished compost. We also have topsoil and mulch and other things like that for sale as well.
Awesome. And one thing I know about backyard composting, I get this question a lot, of course, on a larger scale for food waste composting. And I know it's something that the DEP, you mentioned DEP permitting, something that they look out for when they do site visits and auditing and things like that. Is there a smell to the composting process?
So obviously, part of our job in managing a facility of our size is to control that. And we use a biofilter. So all of our composting is done with the oxygen pumping from the bottom, and then it's capped with this biofilter. And what happens is everything is contained within that pile. So if you were to come to our facility, which you've come and visited us, you would smell earth. That's what we describe it as. It doesn't smell like food waste. We don't expose our food waste to the air. We want to minimize any exposure because that's where you would get an issue. In your backyard, if it was exposed, you might smell it. But we cover it all with a biofilter, make sure it has all the right conditions to heat up. And then no, we don't really have odors.
No odor, again, because it smells like the forest, it smells like the earth. And how about like birds or things like that picking at the food scraps or anything like that?
Yeah, and so when we cover with our biofilter, that is all finished compost. So that's all stuff that's been through our system once. All the food waste is gone. It's already into the compost. And it's also small and dense. So it kind of makes sure that we put a good filter on top. It prevents that from happening. So no, we don't really have too many issues with that.
Okay, so it sounds super simple. Walk me through one more time. I'm a new family to composting. What's that look like on a daily or weekly basis? How are we handling our food waste now? So this, we're not going to use our garbage can. How do we do it?
Yeah, so that's a great question because there's a lot of different ways that people like. You just create your own system. I'll tell you what works for my family. So we use what we call trap and transfer. We have a bowl on the counter. And anytime, there's food waste involved, say that one of my toddlers, doesn't want to eat the rest of their whatever they're eating, their cottage cheese, it goes right into this bowl. So I keep my bucket out on the stoop in the garage. Whenever my bowl is full, or whenever, if it's the evening, if I'm going out to the bucket, to the garage, I just dump it in there, put the lid back on. Whenever that bucket is full, or when I think I might go buy Millcreek, for example, I can bring that with me, dump the contents into one of our bins, and then you bring that bucket home. If it needs a rinse, it may. If not, you can just put another liner in. So that's what I have found to be the easiest. And there are some challenges. For example, in the summertime, if you let something sit in food waste, if it sits out for too long, you might have an odor. But that's with anything. And if it goes in a garbage can or it goes into the compost bucket, it's still going to be the same thing. So some strategies we've used, if you're an apartment dweller and you have a small amount of food waste, put it in the freezer. It doesn't matter to us if it comes frozen. It'll be thawed very shortly once it goes into our system at 160 degrees. So those are a couple of strategies that we use.
That's perfect. We do. We have a glass composting bin for the kitchen, not composting bin, but a composting pail in the kitchen. And so we can see when it's full. And once a week, we take that to our composter outside. But what I can never include, like I mentioned before, is the meat or the fish. You throw that into our trash toter, which is in the garage. And you're right, regardless of where it sits for that week until trash collection, it's it's gonna be a little smelly. So our new plan, again, use that kitchen, the glass pail in the kitchen, empty that, almost daily into our 5-gallon bucket into the garage, and then once a week, we're gonna take that to the Millcreek Compost Center.
And there's no limit on, for example, if you end up having company over and there's extra food waste, there's no limit on how many times you can come and empty that bucket.
Yes.
Once you're part of the program, you come whenever you need to empty that food waste.
Yeah.
So if it's multiple times per week, that's totally fine.
And that's a great point. And I love that you mentioned company, because I feel like that's a great time to educate other people, your friends, your family, and maybe they want to sign on board too. So, okay, so one last time, where do people sign up for the program?
Conservationcompost.com. Click on the residential composting link, and then that's where you would fill out your information. And in the notes section, just let us know, hey, we are Millcreek residents. We want to drop off at Millfair.
Wonderful. Dave, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Viewers, this is a wonderful program. We are super excited to start this. It is the first of its kind. In Millcreek Township, again, we are very passionate about sustainability, and this is something, if you want to make a difference in the environment, this is something that you have control over and you can be hands-on with, and know that you are diverting 30 to 40% of what you would normally send to the landfill. You can now divert it through composting. So I want to thank you for tuning into the Millcreek Government Channel, and until next time, have a great day.